These are the solutions to the study guide for the Chapter 1 test. So again, these problems are very similar to what you'll end up experiencing on that test. So let's see the types of problems we'll see. Well, for the first type, it asks us to write each fraction as a decimal. So we're just going to take the number that we have in the denominator and see how many times it goes into the numerator. Well, we see that 3 doesn't go into 1, so we put a 0 and add a decimal point. Well, when we do that multiplication, 3 times 0 is 0. We subtract, we got 1 left over. Now remember that 1. If that comes up again, then we've got a repeating decimal. Well, 3 goes into 10 3 times, but before we do that, I'm going to add that decimal point, bring it straight up into the quotient. So 3 goes again into 10 3 times, and lo and behold, we end up with a 1 again. So that is the remainder. Notice how we had a remainder of 1 before, so that tells me that if I do another 0 and bring down that 0, I'd have the same exact number in the quotient again. So we can just draw a line over on top of it, and that would be our answer, 3 repeated. Well, looking at the next one, we've got a 8/9, so we do the same thing, 9 into 8. And so we go ahead and do the division. Again, 9 does not go into 8, so we add a 0, bring the decimal point straight up, do the subtraction, and we got an 8 left over. So we see that when we do 9 into 80, it ends up going 8 times. That makes a 72. And notice how I get an 8 again left over. So again, if I added that 0 and brought it down, I have the same number again, so it's just an 8 repeated. So 0 and 8 repeated. Well, the next one, 7/9, same sort of thing, 9 into 7. So 9 does not go into 7, so we multiply the quotient that we have. 0 times 9 makes 0. We subtract, we got 7 left over, bring the decimal point straight up and the 0 down, and 9 goes into 77 times. That makes 63, and notice that we get a 7. Again, so that tells me that the 7 is going to repeat, because notice that it's 9 into 70 once more. So 0.7 repeated is our answer. Well, we have some different types here. Here we have terminating decimal. You'll see that one in this case, because 4 doesn't go into 1. And when we go ahead and bring the 0 down, 4 goes into 10. Bring up the decimal point from the dividend up into the quotient. 4 goes into 10 2 times, and that makes 8. Do the subtraction, we got 2 left over. So notice the numbers are different here, so we got to continue going. 4 goes into 25 times evenly. So once we get that remainder of 0, we know we're done. So 25 hundredths is the answer for number 4. Number 8, well, this time we're doing 8 into 1. Doesn't go in there, so we're adding that 0, doing the subtraction, bringing the decimal point straight up and adding a 0. 8 goes into 10, we have 1 time, with 2 left over. Again, notice the numbers are different, so we've got to continue working. 8 into 20 ends up going 2 times, so we get 16, do the subtraction, we got 4 left over, so still a different number. We continue once more, and that ends up going 5 times to make exactly 40, getting us a remainder of 0. So that number is 0 and 125 thousandths. Well, the last one of this type, we have 8 into 7. 8 doesn't go into 7, so we're going to add that decimal point and do this multiplication of 0 and 8. That makes 0. Subtract, we got 7 left over. 8 into 70 ends up going 8 times. That makes 64. We have 6 left over. So we're bringing down that 0, and we see that 8 goes into 60 7 times, makes 56, 4 left over. And then we bring down the 0, and 8 goes into 45 times evenly. So there's our answer. So you see how we get a remainder of 0, so it terminated. So the answer is 0 and 875 thousandths. Well, the next set of directions asks us to write as a fraction in simplest form. So that means that we're going to take that 25 and we're going to write it over 1,000. 1,000 because there's 3 numbers after the decimal point, and 5's in the thousandths place, so that's how we read it, 25 thousandths. Well, there's a common factor between these two numbers. I can divide each by 25 because they either end in 25, 50, 75, or double zeros. And when we do that division, we're left with 1 over 40. That would be our answer. Next one's going to be 5 over 10,000. 10,000 because there are 4 decimal points after decimal places after the decimal point. So 5 is in the 10,000ths place. So we're going to go ahead and divide this time by just a 5 to come up with our answer. So in this case, 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 goes into 10 two times evenly, so we've got the 3 zeros that we need to add on. So 1 over 2,000. And the next one we got a repeating decimal. So repeating decimals, we're going to set x equal to what is repeating, the 0.81. And the whole idea is to cancel out what's repeating. So what we're going to end up doing is multiply both sides by 100. And so what that leaves us with is this 100x equals 81.81 repeated. So now we've got it in a way which we can get rid of that 81 that's being repeated by subtracting it. And that will cancel out that 81 repeated. Now on the other side I'm going to take away x because that's what 81 repeated is. That's what I said it was, x. So now I've got 99x equals 81. So from that point we're just going to divide by the 99 and just reduce the fraction. So I see that we can divide the 81 by 9 and divide the 99 by 9. So that leaves me with 9/11. Well, the next one's very similar, just different numbers. So I'm going to set what is being repeated equal to 0, and then I'm going to multiply by a number that will move the decimal point over the number of spaces that are repeating. So there's 2 spaces that repeat, so I'm going to multiply by 100. So when I do that, I'm left with 100x equals 18.18 repeated. So from that point, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the x from both sides, and here I'll take away the 0.18 repeated from both sides. So once I've done that, I'm left with 99x equals 18. So from this point, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 99. And when I do that, I see that there's a common factor of 9 once more. That's going to leave me with 2/11 as the answer. Well, taking a look at the next type of problem, we'll have some either multiplication, division, subtraction, or addition on that test with fractions. So let's check out what we're supposed to do here. Well, here we've got 4/5. We're multiplying by 15/26. Notice how we have one negative. So right away I know that my answer is going to end up being negative because it's a negative times a positive. All I'm going to do now is reduce. So I see that first of all a 5 goes into 5 and 5 goes into 15. So 15 changes to a 3, 5 to a 1. Here I'll take out a common factor of 2. So we're left with 13 and negative 2. So I'm ready to multiply. So I see that I've got negative 2 and 3 make negative 6. 1 and 13 make 13. So negative 6 over 13 is my solution. And looking at the next one, it's division. So what we're going to do is keep the first fraction the same, multiply by the reciprocal. So notice that doesn't matter where the negative sign goes. It's just a matter of moving the 12 to the bottom, 25 to the top. Now I'm ready to reduce. So I see that I can divide both the 5 and the 10, or 25 and the 10, by 5. And down here I'll become a 2. And then here I'll take out the common factor of 3. So I'll take out a 3 on the bottom and the top. And I'm left with negative 3. And then down here I'm left with 4. So now I'm ready to multiply across. And notice how the 2 negatives are going to cancel out to make a positive 15 over 8. Just change that to a mixed number for me. You get your answer. So 1 7/8. And the next problem is just a subtraction problem. So the difference with subtraction or addition is you got to come up with a common denominator. So I look at the factors of 2 and of 6, and they're 2 and 3, and 8 has a 2 and a 4. So the factor that 8 does not have is that 3. So that's why I'm multiplying it by 3 over 3, and the factor 6 doesn't have is the 4. So from that point, we're ready to multiply across. I've got 9/24, and I'm taking away 20/24. So that leaves me with negative 11/24. Well, and the last one of this type, we've got a 9, and it has factors of 3 and 3, and the 12 has factors of 3 and 4. And so from this point, we're ready to go ahead and look to see what the other factor is that we're missing. And the 9 doesn't have that 4, so we'll multiply it by 4/4, and the 12 doesn't have that extra 3. So I'm ready to multiply across. So when I do, I'm left with 8/36. I'm going to add on 15/36. So when I add those two numbers together, it leaves me with 23/36. That would be my answer. So those are some of the problems you'll see on the test. There are two other parts that represent solutions for the rest of the problems.